Hello there. Welcome into a Friday edition of the show. We're one sleep away. Nuggets, Clippers game one, Avs, Stars game one, both tomorrow right here on Extra Sports 1300. So that will be the main topics of the day. I appreciate you taking time to join me, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening, and that is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. Mark Mosier, voice on the television side of the Colorado Avalanche, will be my guest. He'll join me from Dallas coming up in the next segment. I have three big storylines, the biggest storylines that I want to go over in each of these series: Avs, Stars, Nuggets, Clippers. Some leftover draft conversation based on what you heard yesterday from George Payton and Sean Payton, where they may be going, where they may not be going. And we start with those two playoff series that begin tomorrow. You know, I think for both of these teams coming into the year, it was championship or bust. I think that, that was the level of expectation for both of these teams, was to compete for a championship, to win a championship. I suppose there's a little bit of wiggle room in there considering how good Boston is. But going into the year, I think at the very least, it was that these two teams should be appearing in their respective sports championship round. But I think that expectations can change a little bit. And I think with the changes that both the Nuggets and the Avalanche have made, I don't know if that's still necessarily the standard here. I guess the way I would put it is this way. I think there will be a fair amount of disappointment for both teams if they don't at least get to the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Final. There will be a healthy level of disappointment because each team has one of, if not the best players in their sport. They're not that far removed from a title, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Can we throw around the word failure of a season if either one of these teams don't make it because of the changes they made? How much does firing Michael Malone change what you view as a success for the Denver Nuggets, given how many changes Chris McFarland made to the Colorado Avalanche? Part of what I am struggling with is, yes, these two teams are supposed to be held to a championship level, but they have undergone changes that it would be hard to truly still hold them to that standard. We haven't seen a team remake their roster in quite the same way the Avalanche have. And we've only seen one, and I say I didn't. I wasn't born. I wasn't even born when Hubie Brown got fired with 3 games left. We'd never seen a coach get fired as late in the season as Michael Malone did. And so in some ways, I don't know if these seasons for these two teams can be considered failures if they don't let's say, at least play for their respective teams. Now, expectations going into the playoffs are a little bit different. Right? As things go along, expectations go up for both of these teams. So I think it will be interesting when both the Avalanche and Nuggets seasons come to an end, what the conversation is like. Because what these two teams have done this season, no one has ever done and won a title. And that's what makes both of these teams' playoff runs so fascinating. There aren't zero expectations for these two teams. It's not just whatever they do is great. That's not what I'm trying to say. But we live in a very different world when it comes to the Nuggets and Avalanche than we did in October. And I'm not trying to let either team off the hook. But given all the new and all the changes, I think what constitutes a successful playoff run is maybe a little bit different. But I'll tell you the difference with these two teams, and that's where the pressure lies. Whatever pressure there is, whatever expectation there is, it's different. It lies with a different person or persons with each team. For the Denver Nuggets, with the firing of Michael Malone, I think the pressure is on them, the players. David Adelman doesn't have any pressure. They don't have a general, I guess they have an interim general manager, but who are we going to point to if the Nuggets playoff run ends prematurely? Are we really going to say that Josh Kroenke firing Michael Malone kept the Denver Nuggets from winning a title? I don't think anybody would be saying that. I think we've come to realize that it was a necessary move, and the timing of it was a little bit curious, but if you have watched this team, you know they weren't heading for an NBA title. They just weren't going to. I don't know if simply making a coaching change is what spurs this team forward and helps them win a title, because I think that there are some real flaws on this roster. But now all our focus is on the players. If the Nuggets get bounced, whether it be in round 1 or round 2 or whenever it might be, we'll be looking at Michael Porter Jr., we'll be looking at Jamal Murray. Perhaps to a lesser extent, a Christian Brown and a Russell Westbrook. But the pressure to accomplish whatever the Nuggets are going to accomplish is on the players. And the questions that will be asked when their playoff run comes to an end is which players are to blame for falling short and which ones do the Nuggets need to look at to potentially move to make their roster right again, to recalibrate, to course correct. So I think the pressure is on the players for the Denver Nuggets. Conversely, for the Avalanche, I think if there's pressure, I think it's on Chris McFarland, don't you think? I mean, the goaltending moves aside, right? Because that felt extremely necessary. But the Mikko Rantanen trade, which is going to be discussed ad nauseum over the next week or so was a big swing to move him and to bring in Natchez and Drury and all the corresponding moves. This was Chris McFarland looking at this team and saying, the team, the players, it's not good enough. I got the right coach. I got the right culture. I don't have the right players. The Nuggets are making some level of a bet that they didn't have the right coach. With the Avalanche, I think if there's pressure, it's on Chris McFarland, because if they lose in this first round, there will be questions about whether trading Mikko Rantanen was a good idea, especially if he ends up doing a fair amount of damage. It was necessary to replace Alexander Georgiev, but you do it with a goaltender that's never played on the stage he's about to step on tomorrow. And is Brock Nelson truly the right guy? And you can go down the list. And I think a lot of it is Chris McFarland. You have backed Valeri Nichushkin. You have been his biggest advocate. You have talked about how important this guy is and why you wouldn't even dream of moving on from him given what has happened the last 2 years. I think there's a lot on Chris McFarland with the Avalanche playoff run. Because at the very least, if they don't go as far as some people may think, it would be, well, it's too much new. Right? Too much new, too fast. And maybe if you keep Mikko Rantanen and maybe try and swing a deal for Brock Nelson, do you do some of these things while keeping Mikko Rantanen? And could that have fixed it? Or it could be you threw your lot in with the wrong guy. You thought Mikko Rantanen was expendable. You didn't think Valeri Nichushkin was. And here's what happened. So I think the pressure to win, because I don't think a first-round exit is really acceptable for either team, regardless of opponent, regardless of situation. I don't think a first-round exit's okay for either team. What I'm saying is I don't know that either or both have to make it all the way to the championship round. I don't know that. I think especially the Nuggets, there's just this feeling of, yeah, no, it's not in the cards. So what does success and failure look like through that lens? I mean, we'll find out when we get there, because we have to see what happens and why the Nuggets don't go as far as they should, or why the Avalanche don't. But I think this playoff run with the Denver Nuggets is about the roster. Was the roster right? Were the decisions to lock up Gordon and Porter and Murray the right ones? And then for the Avalanche, was Chris McFarland right? Was the changes that this team made so necessary that they had to move on from one of their most important players from a Stanley Cup winning team? Both of these first-round series, both of these playoffs for the Avs and Nuggets are fascinating. And it really, I did the top 3 storylines for each series. I could have done 5 or 6. There's so many different storylines for these 2 series. It's going to be an interesting week. Great week, I suppose, depends on the result. but an interesting week for sure. Take your final thoughts and who you got, of course, the biggest question. Are the Nuggets getting past the Clippers or are the Avs getting past the Stars? I'll give you my thoughts as we move along. Coming up next, I'll be joined live from Dallas by Mark Mosier of Altitude Television, and he'll get you ready for the Avs and Stars Game 1 tomorrow night. You're listening to Extra Sports 1300. Tomorrow, the Colorado Springs Switchbacks host El Paso Locomotive. It is jersey reveal night at Widener Field, so you get to check out the Switchbacks in their new threads for the 2025 season. Tickets available now at switchbacksfc.com, or you can win them from me right meow. Be the 13th texter to text Switchbacks and your name to 719-247-1313. The 13th texter to do that will win a pair of tickets for tomorrow's match between Switchbacks FC and El Paso Locomotive. Efforting Mark Mosier, he has traveled today to Dallas and getting ready for game one of that series. So we'll see if we can't, this is where, if anybody that controls the Extra Sports 1300 budget is listening, where like a call screen, somebody to figure some stuff out while I'm talking would be helpful sometimes on the show. So in the meantime, while we effort, let's talk about this Nuggets series, getting more in depth on it. I have the three biggest storylines, and it's not to say, and I was just talking about this in the last segment, it's not to say that these are the only three. In fact, both the Avs Stars and Nuggets Clippers series are just filled with different storylines. And some storylines are more bigger picture playoff storylines, like, for instance, I mentioned the roster and the pressure that's on the players. Is this roster truly good enough to win another title? That's what we're getting ready to find out over the course of these playoffs. But that's a playoff, whether it's done in round one, round two, or in the NBA Finals. That's when that storyline is going to permeate throughout. I'm talking Nuggets Clippers, this first round series. Here are the three biggest storylines to me. One is Russell Westbrook. Now, you know how I feel about depth. Depth is more a regular season thing than it is a playoff thing. If you got your starting five, especially this starting five, they're going to play almost every minute of every game. But we remember just a couple of years ago that Bruce Brown was a thing. It was actually on that team, Bruce Brown and Christian Brown. But they do need somebody. And David Adelman said this today out at practice, that he's telling everybody to be ready. I think he has an idea of what his rotation will be. I think it is subject to change. I think we could see some Jalen Pickett. I think we could see some DeAndre Jordan. I think we could see potentially some Julian Strawther. But I think there are 7 guys that are locked in that are going to be called upon every game of this series. And it's the starting 5, it's Russell Westbrook, and it's Peyton Watson. I think those 7 guys are going to be playing every game without fail. That 8th guy, which is probably what you need in a playoff rotation, that's going to be fungible. That's David Adelman's going to figure out, what does he need from that player. And given the fact that Peyton Watson was, for whatever reason, not worthy of inclusion in the Wolves series, I don't know what you can really expect from Peyton Watson. But Russell Westbrook is that guy. He's not Bruce Brown, but he's supposed to be that. He's a different player. They got to have someone that they can turn to. And Russell Westbrook has been through this before. He is the most seasoned veteran when it comes to the postseason, and as decorated of a playoff performer as they have. They have to be able to rely on him. And think about this. What if Jamal Murray's not right? Let's play that game for a second. What if Jamal Murray isn't healthy? What if he misses a game? All of a sudden, the most important thing that the Nuggets do, that two-man game at the end of games, is now going to be run by Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook. And we saw some really good play out of the two of them. But it just underscores how valuable and how important Russell Westbrook is going to be for this Nuggets team in this series. And it could be even more important depending on the health of Jamal Murray. They have to be able to rely on Russell Westbrook, the agent of chaos that he is. They have to be able to harness it. He has to be able to harness it. Katie Wingy from Altitude was on the show with me yesterday. Put it perfectly. He's got to play under control. We have seen Russell Westbrook late in the season get out of control and do some things, the Minnesota game, that you question and that costs the Denver Nuggets. That can happen again. And as far as Russell Westbrook goes, let's not forget, this guy hasn't won a title. Usually we go into the playoffs and we talk about the players that haven't won a ring yet and the importance of winning a ring for them. I don't get a lot of that talk out of the Denver Nuggets. But how many more bites at the apple does Russell Westbrook have to win a title? He's going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's going to be a Hall of Famer with a big fat asterisk next to on his resume. And he don't want that. He wants to win a title. I have no doubt the desire of Russell Westbrook to win a title. So one of the big storylines, Russell Westbrook. How under control is he? How big of a role is he going to play? It's already significant. It could get even bigger as the series goes on. Storyline number 2 is David Adelman. I think that the coaching change itself can be credited more for the way that the Nuggets ended the season than necessarily David Adelman. I'm not trying to, knock him or anything like that. But it was 3 games. And the kind of the shock to the system and the ownership that you hope players take in the wake of something like that, I think that's what kind of took over there at the end of the season. I was impressed with what David Adelman did, how he handled everything, the way he was with the media, the way he would coach games. He seemed like he was allowing the players to take ownership in what was going on. And I think that's exactly what they needed. The track record for interim coaches in the NBA playoffs is a bit of a mixed bag. Of course, Ty Lue is probably the most successful example of an interim head coach. But as you remember, Ty Lue did not take over anywhere close to 3 games left in the regular season. LeBron made that call early. And the coincidence of it all is that that's the coach he's going to be matched up with. And Tyronn Lue at this point is one of the best coaches in the NBA. David Adelman as a head coach is going to come more to the forefront than it did over the final 3 games. Some of the shock has kind of worn down. Some of the emotions have kind of settled a little bit. Now this guy's got to coach. This guy's got to control the rotation. He's got to figure out, along with Ryan Saunders, they got to figure out defensively what they're going to do. The timeouts that he takes, you saw the Memphis game the other night, the play-in, inbounds passes, like the inbounds plays. There are a lot of things, the non-Jokic minutes. He can't play every minute of every game. He just can't. He's going to have to sit. When they do that, for even a couple of minutes, is going to be important. David Adelman has got to make some of these decisions. Now, in terms of game planning, he will have Nikola Jokic with him, and that will help a lot. Not just as a player, but you've seen what Nikola Jokic has done more in the wake of Michael Malone's firing. Kind of being that on-court and on the bench captain. So a lot of what, especially with the Clippers defense, Nikola Jokic is going to help David Adelman figure that out. But there are things that are the responsibility of the head coach that David Adelman's going to have to hit on. And it's not going to be easy because Tyronn Lue, again, is one of the best coaches in the NBA, and especially the moments throughout the game that can swing, right? The last couple of minutes of a quarter, the first couple of minutes of the next quarter, inbounds plays after timeouts, things like that. Tyronn Lue is as good as they come when it comes to drawing up plays out of timeouts. There will be a little bit of a battle of wits, and we're also trying to see if David Adelman is truly the right guy moving forward. There's some X's and O's in there that's going to be a requirement. As far as the psychological aspect of his job, I think he's off to a great start. But in the playoffs, he's going to have to coach. So I'm interested to see that. And then I hate that this is the biggest storyline, but it absolutely is. Health. You know, I would love to sit here and just be able to, without any caveats, without any equivocation, go, Nuggets are better at this, this, and this. Clippers are better at this, this, and this. And this is how it will play out because of it. But there are some major question marks when it comes to the health of the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray, positive sign, playing back-to-back games to close out the year. Didn't look like he was moving great. I think tomorrow you're going to see, I think it's reasonable to say that the best Jamal Murray will look in this series is tomorrow. And if it's spectacular and if he's moving great, then you say even if he declines a little bit, it's still going to be really good and really helpful to the Denver Nuggets. But Jamal Murray's health is a question. Aaron Gordon looks like he got in a fist fight. He got elbowed in the face against the Rockets. He looks awful. But that's not where my question mark lies with his health. He's been banged up. In a world where Jamal Murray is healthy all season, we're talking about how many games Aaron Gordon has missed. And he is your most important defensive player because he's got to guard Kawhi. So I have questions about how Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon look tomorrow and moving forward. How they hold up. Does something flare up? Because they're done. They're done if either of those two guys are not available or at less than 50% or whatever percentage. If they're not at their peak, Nuggets aren't going to win this series. But we have to be fair here. If there is any team that can not take health out of the equation, it is the Los Angeles Clippers. There is a non-zero chance, and I chuckle a little bit. I don't mean to because I sure hope this doesn't happen, that Kawhi Leonard's knee could turn to jello by game 3. I mean, the people who are picking the LA Clippers how much of their prediction is riding on Kawhi Leonard making it through this series healthy. You know, the last time that Kawhi Leonard finished a playoff series in an LA Clippers uniform? You should. You may not know off the top of your head, but you'll remember it. It was the bubble. It was the Nuggets coming back from 3-1 down. That was the last playoff series that Kawhi Leonard finished healthy. And like so many things that happened in the year 2020, it feels like it's ancient history. It's been forever that Kawhi Leonard has been able to play an entire playoff series for the Los Angeles Clippers. So have to be fair, and I think it's being lost in the analysis here. Everyone is like, well, they have Kawhi back. Yeah, but for how long? And you don't at least entertain the possibility that he doesn't make it through this series? Because I'll say the same thing about Kawhi Leonard as I said about Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon. If the Clippers don't have Kawhi or he's severely hampered, Clippers are done. They're not beating the Nuggets in a 7-game series without the Kawhi Leonard that you've seen over the last 15, 20 games. And again, I hate that that's a storyline, but it's the number one storyline. And it's going to be day to day. You think the wait for Gabriel Landeskog has been excruciating and talking about, okay, is he ready? But if he's ready, but is he 100%? Like all that kind of stuff that we've been doing with Gabriel Landeskog, it's going to be a day-to-day thing with Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Kawhi Leonard, who just so happen to be outside of James Harden and Nikola Jokic, the 3 most important players in this series. So the health of these two teams, especially Jamal Murray and Kawhi Leonard, but to a lesser degree, Aaron Gordon as well. Health is going to be the big thing. Those players got to be healthy or got to be able to play through whatever they're dealing with, or their respective teams aren't going to win this series. Now, with that being said, I think that the Clippers are going to win this series. It's my question around the durability of Jamal Murray throughout this series. But it's also how these two teams stack up. I said it early in the week. You know, all of these teams have flaws. And when every team is flawed, when there is no super team, no Durant Warriors, no Heatles, even though apparently now they're not a big 3, according to Rich Paul, those days are done. The Jordan Bulls, the invincible Golden State Warriors, the teams that LeBron was able to put together in Cleveland and Miami, not the early Cleveland teams, but when later on, when it was him and Kyrie and all that, those teams are gone. Every one of these teams in the playoffs is beatable and flawed, except for maybe Boston, but that's the Eastern Conference's problem for now. When there are no super teams, when there are no invincible teams, it's about matchups. And I look and I see a Clippers team that attacks exactly what the Nuggets' weaknesses are. They're a very good three-point shooting team, one of the top 5 three-point shooting teams in the league. The Nuggets are one of the worst when it comes to defending that. Their point of attack defense has not been good this year. And you have arguably two of the best one-on-one players in the league in James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. Defensively, Clippers are stout. And Zubats is not going to stop Nikola Jokic. And it's not even about containing him. It's about making him work. You're essentially trying to wear down Nikola Jokic. Zubats can do that. Now, it may not show up in the box score, but if Zubats can keep Nikola Jokic at a let's say a 25-point triple-double instead of a 30-point triple-double because he's making him work on the defensive end. And that's what it's about. It's about the fact that Nikola Jokic has to really defend or Zubats is going to have a good series. Wearing him down while attacking everything else on the Denver Nuggets. Health obviously is going to hang over this entire thing. And if Kawhi Leonard goes down, then my prediction is null and void. Same with people picking the Denver Nuggets. I'll give you that latitude as well. If Jamal Murray isn't healthy, you get it back out of it because that's the biggest aspect of this. I think Kawhi's healthier than Jamal Murray. That could change. But as of right now, that's where I'm at. And the Clippers have a lot of things that present issues for the Denver Nuggets. I'm going with the LA Clippers. 719-247-1313. Take your predictions for Nuggets and Clippers. We'll get to the three biggest storylines in the Avs Stars series. I'll give you my prediction for that as well as we continue on this Friday edition of Drive Time Sports. Comedian Dusty Slay is bringing the Night Shift Tour to Pikes Peak Center on Saturday, May 3rd. Tickets available online at axs.com or in person at the Pikes Peak Center box office. Speaking of tickets, congrats to Brandy, who won a pair of tickets for tomorrow's game between the Switchbacks and El Paso Locomotive. And a pro tip, as they say, I don't know who the they are. In fact, there might not even be a they. That might be done. The Switchbacks just tweeted out something that says 4 o'clock. You may want to be there at 4 o'clock. The post is like a video, and it says you may see a reflection. It's jersey reveal. Are they going to have like mirror jerseys? I don't know. I'm just passing along information. I have no inside information. I can't get any, and it's a good ego check, right? The one team that I feel like, you know what? If I needed to be, I could be an insider with the time I spend. And then I realize they don't tell me anything. So I have no idea what the new uniforms look like. I'm just trying to piece clues together on social media like the rest of you. Kickoff will be at 6, by the way, for that game. Interesting late development when it comes to the NFL draft. So Jackson Dart's not going anymore. News came out today that Jackson Dart will no longer attend the draft in Green Bay. And then you remember earlier this week, people had their ears perked up when they found out that Jalen Milroe, quarterback from Alabama, was going to the draft. So allow me to put up my Brian Windhorst pointer fingers and go, what's going on here? Jalen Milroe, a quarterback that is unequivocally not a first-round prospect. Okay, he's not. He is a I don't want to call him a project, but I think he's going to need some seasoning, right? He is not even a guy that you can consider playing game 1 of this upcoming season. What Jalen Milroe does have is he has one trait. You look at these quarterbacks and you say, what's their one trait that is superb? And it's Jalen Milroe's speed. So if you draft Jalen Milroe, you at least have that. You know that at the NFL level, Jalen Milroe can run around and away from anybody. But as we've learned through the years with Lamar Jackson, you can't just do that. And Lamar Jackson's not the only one. You can name a few quarterbacks. You can't just run around. You're going to have to eventually be able to beat teams from the pocket. And Jalen Milroe could not do that in an NFL game this upcoming season. There's no way. But that's what second-round quarterbacks are for, right? Later picks, right? Less pressure. You bring him in, bring him along, and then maybe you have something in a year. And then Jackson Dart, 2 minutes ago, was going to be a Steeler. Right? Oh, surely Shedeur Sanders is going to go before Pittsburgh, and they'll be relegated to drafting Jackson Dart. Well, the thing is, if Pittsburgh does maneuver to land Shedeur Sanders, now all of a sudden there's not a team remaining in the first round that is going to take Jackson Dart because, I mean, this is all, I think reasonably you would have to say that Shador would have to get past New Orleans. And I don't even know that I buy the idea that he's going to make it past there. I've said I don't think he makes it past Vegas. But in order for the Steelers to really be in on Shador Sanders, I think he's got to fall past 9. And Saints aren't taking Jackson Dart at 9. So it's interesting, and I can't help but connecting those two quarterbacks and saying one showing up in Green Bay, because it's so heartbreaking to watch these guys, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Will Levis, to watch these guys just sit there and like twiddling their thumbs and like trying to act like it's not getting to them, that they're waiting an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. All of a sudden, they're the last guy left in the room. And Jalen Milrose, like, sign me up. And Jackson Dart's like, I'm out. It's hard for me not to think that the two of them have some kind of information. And depending on the team, I actually do think that trading back into the first round, right, because you get the extra year for a quarterback, I actually think it makes more sense for a team to trade back into the first round to grab Milroe, even though he's not, quote unquote, a first round quarterback. But you get him in, you get the extra year, especially with him, that would be good to have because he's going to need time to develop. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about any quarterback outside of Shador Sanders or Cam Ward. But if I'm a team looking to trade back into the first round, whether it be Cleveland or what have you, I think I would consider trading back in the first round to grab Milroe after drafting somebody else earlier, like if I'm Cleveland. And I'm taking Travis Hunter at 2, which looks like it's a foregone conclusion at this point. Trading back in, grabbing Milroe, going with the Joe Flacco experience for another year, and then coaching up Jalen Milroe. Doesn't feel like a fit with Kevin Stefanski. But my main point is, if I'm a team that's looking to trade back into the first round to grab a quarterback, I'm trading back into the first round to take Jalen Milroe and not Jackson Dart. If Jackson Dart falls to me, fine. So Jackson Dart not going to Green Bay days after Jalen Milroe surprised a lot of people by accepting the NFL's invitation to go out to Green Bay. Speaking of the draft, more out of George Payton and Sean Payton talking yesterday gave me all the feelings that they were going to be quite responsible with the 20th pick. But what if somebody happens to fall? Who would that person be? That may make the Broncos get a little bit more aggressive. I have some thoughts coming up next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in, Drive Time Sports on a Friday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Pleasure to have you, whether you're listening to the show or watching the show on our social media platforms at Extra Sports 1300, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. All great places to go. Choose your social media platform of choice. If you would like to interact with the show, you could do so on those same social media platforms, or you could text or call into the show at 719-247-1313. So through a variety of metaphors, Sean Payton gave me the feeling that this Broncos team is not necessarily looking to make a major splash on Thursday. If you did not hear yesterday, here's Sean Payton talking about the importance of a blender.
I mean, you can target guys sometimes. We're all guilty of really liking a player and then but let's not bypass the crystal for a blender if we need a blender.
And here's him talking about golf.
We can't be afraid of talking about our goals and where we see this team, and especially coming out of free agency, and I probably more than any other average to below average handicap golfer am guilty of hitting a driver when I should be hitting another club.
So it does seem like Sean Payton is okay with, not that he won't have a say, but allowing this to be, allow George Payton to do his thing, right? Sometimes coaches, Mike Ditka perhaps being the greatest example of this, right? Was he GM of the Saints at the time? I think of him as a coach. He might have had all that power, but you think of a coach falling in love with a guy and says, go ahead, trade our next 2 picks to go and get this guy. And I got to imagine most general managers, when that happens, are a little bit disappointed. Not because they're not getting a great player, and obviously that's the goal of the draft, but they like to play with the draft picks that they have. And I think in many ways, George Payton was kind of forced into taking Bo Nix when he did, because they didn't have a second-round pick. They couldn't take somebody and then try to trade back into the first round. Draft somebody, trade back up, grab Bo Nix later on. They didn't even have that option. So I think George Payton would very much like to use all the Broncos picks to really attack a few different positions on this roster. And Sean Payton talked about yesterday the idea of being in a position where you could really look at guys that their impact may be 2-3 years down the road, their most profound impact, rather than getting a day one starter. But plans change. Right? And that any golfer knows, that driver calls to you. It's a siren song, but it will call to you. And it will say, pick me up, grip it and rip it. And it's a siren song that it's very difficult to ignore. But I do think there's enough, I don't want to say like discipline, like the Broncos would be reckless, right? None of this is about being reckless with their picks, but aggressive. I think the feeling from the Denver Broncos is we're fine where we're at. We think we will have a choice between at least a couple of guys we really like. And then given the depth at some of the positions at 50, we could get another player we really like, or we could move up in the second round a few spots to get a guy we like I think that's kind of the mindset that the Broncos have going into this draft. But things could change. I really don't think that player is Ashton Genty. I really don't. Because the player that I think Sean Payton will kind of elbow George Payton and like, hey, this guy's dropping. We should think about going up and getting him. I don't think that Genty possesses or is that kind of a player. You know, Adam Schefter was on ESPN, I saw. And at first what he said, I was like, come on now. But I've said this. I said this immediately after they brought in Evan Ingram. Don't rule out tight end. Don't. There's no guarantee that Evan Ingram is going to be everything Sean Payton wants and hopes he will be. There's no guarantee. And even if he is, you know what's better than one joker? Two jokers. Adam Schefter brought back the joker word. And I know Adam Schefter is maybe not as connected to the Denver Broncos as he used to be, but he's Adam freaking Schefter. Okay? When he speaks, you listen. I think it actually makes sense. I don't believe that the Broncos are going to be moving up. I think we will look at whoever they end up picking at 20 and go, that is a smart football decision. Maybe we won't be wowed by it, but we will say that makes sense. The one exception, the one place where I could see the Broncos maybe taking a swing, and I'll leave the Tyler Warren. We got to start, getting a grip on reality. All right, I could keep throwing Tyler Warren out as the example, but got to let him go. He's not making it far enough for the Denver Broncos. It would be a huge shock if Tyler Warren is even in the general vicinity of the Denver Broncos at 20. But Colston Loveland, not as good as Warren, but still it seems like Warren is head and shoulders above everyone. But even Loveland is kind of a tier above all the other tight ends and possesses some of those joker traits. And best part for Sean Payton, he gets to draft Colston Loveland and his former college coach Jim Harbaugh doesn't. Spite is a very powerful motivating factor. But a Colston Loveland, but I'm thinking more, how about at the running back position? That's not Ashton Genty. That's Amarion Hampton. That's Travion Henderson. Now, I think certainly Henderson, but I even kind of believe that Hampton is going to be around when the Broncos are on the clock. But let's say there's a little bit of a run. Let's say that the Raiders do go Genty. And I'm now starting, I listened to their GM and Pete Carroll speak today. I don't know. I think they're loading it up for them to zig when everyone thinks they're zagging. I watched their press conference and I came away thinking they are less likely to draft Ashton Genty. Because they're in a spot where, and maybe they feel like, well, no one's going to take Genty before us, so we could speak more freely. Doesn't mean they won't take him. Just, I feel less confident that the Raiders will take Ashton Genty. But let's say Genty does go to Vegas, and then the Bears are really dead set, and now they take Amarion Hampton to give Ben Johnson the two-back lineup that he had in Detroit. Now, all of a sudden, The next guy to likely go off the board is Travion Henderson. So it doesn't have to be necessarily somebody that falls. It could be somebody that all of a sudden you think is going to go much sooner because there was a mini run on one of these positions. I could see, if that were to happen, that the Broncos might go up to get a Travion Henderson. How far? I don't know, because Dallas needs a running back. But what Sean Payton values is flexibility, right? He likes, that's why Marvin Mims all of a sudden moving forward becomes a huge part of what the Denver Broncos do, because he can do different things. I think the idea that the Broncos just need one joker is not correct. They needed at least one. And I think that Sean Payton, and you look at Mark Ingram, but especially look at Reggie Bush, and look, they're not going to get a player of Reggie Bush's quality. But just the idea that he can move them around the field, split them out wide, perhaps. They can catch and run the ball. If all of a sudden more running backs are starting to go than we expect, then I could see Sean Payton going, like, I like the depth of running back in this draft, but I really like Hampton and I really like Travion Henderson, and they're slipping away. So I guess the archetype of the player that I think that the Broncos could take a swing on is somebody that Sean Payton will immediately say he could be a joker for us. That makes you think that. Ashton Genty's not that type of player. Brilliant running back. Not that type of player. I don't think this team is going to move up to draft defense. I think if they stick at 20, they may very well end up drafting defense, but I don't think they're moving up to get it. And I don't think they're moving up to grab a wide receiver. And that's the other thing, too, with yesterday's press conference. I mean, Sean Payton keeps saying it, and I guess I got to start to believe him. The fact of the matter is Sean Payton likes the Broncos wide receivers more than I do. Clearly. Because he keeps talking about how much he likes this group and how much they're going to get a chance. I'm starting to believe him. Now, I have said Emeka Egbuka is this year's Bo Nix, right? I said early on in this process last year that Bo Nix was going to be a player that Sean Payton loves. I think Emeka Egbuka is a player that Sean Payton will love. I think he does love him. I think he'd seriously consider making him the pick at 20. But Egbuka's not. He's a different wide receiver than, say, Marvin Mims. And Marvin Mims is Joker-ish, right? Let's not use the Joker phrase with him. He's versatile. Egbuka is kind of like the Ashton Genty of wide receivers, like just a really good wide receiver, but doesn't offer you all that versatility. And that's what Sean Payton wants. He wants to move guys around. He wants to make defensive coordinators think about it. So the type of player that I think that the Broncos would get aggressive, would pull the driver out of the bag, so to speak, would be a player that Sean Payton looks at and says, I could play him here, I could play him here, I could do this with him, I could do this with him. I think that would be the one exception. Coming up next, Nuggets, Clippers. Talked about them in the three biggest storylines going into their series. How about Avs and Stars, the three biggest storylines of that series, which begins tomorrow, coming up next on Extra Sports 1300. So earlier discussed the three biggest storylines in the Nuggets Clippers series, which begins tomorrow. 1:00, our coverage begins. But then later tomorrow, game one of the Avs and the Stars. And I also have the three biggest storylines of that series ready to go for you. Let's just get this one out of the way. Yes, Mikko Rantanen happens to play for the Dallas Stars. And that is maybe the biggest storyline. These are not ordered necessarily. I will point out which one may be the biggest. The Mikko Rantanen storyline may be the biggest. Yes, even bigger than Gabriel Landeskog's return for this series. Right? Again, there are storylines that are going to permeate throughout the postseason for the Colorado Avalanche. The Gabriel Landeskog story is bigger than just one series. Mikko Rantanen is about this series. We have never seen this circumstance play out in NHL history, where a player as good as Mikko Rantanen gets traded in the middle of the season from one contender, and I guess we have to be accurate with what happened, and eventually makes his way to another contender in that same season, only for those two teams to match up. We've never seen this confluence of events before. Because the Avalanche would have never straight up dealed Mikko Rantanen to the Dallas Stars. They would have never done that. So it's understandable why we've never seen this before, because why would a Stanley Cup contender, let alone one in the same division, trade somebody to a division rival and fellow Stanley Cup contender? But that's what makes it so fascinating. And we can't misremember Mikko Rantanen. Okay? And I've seen a lot of that going on. Let's not diminish his impact on the organization just to make yourself feel better about the fact that he's no longer with the Avalanche, or make it easier to see him in the Stars uniform, whatever the justification for it. Mikko Rantanen had 14 points in 11 playoff games last year. When Valeri Nichushkin had his issues, Mikko Rantanen was still there producing till the bitter end. 14 points in 11 games. He scored the only goal for the Avs when they lost to the Kraken the year before. And they don't sweep Edmonton in the Western Conference Finals the year they won the Stanley Cup without what Mikko Rantanen did in that series, not only doing what Mikko Rantanen normally does, but also doing what Nazem Kadri does as the second line center. This guy has been as good as anyone on the Avs in the playoffs these last few years. I don't think he's going to lose his way when it comes to that just because he's on a different team. I understand not playing with Nathan McKinnon. That's a different thing. But Mikko Rantanen is a big game player. He is, out of everybody in the playoff field, every single player in the playoff field, he is 11th in goals, in playoff goals among the active players in these playoffs. I mean, it's a list of like Ovechkin and then, Corey Perry. Connor McDavid's only one goal up on Mikko Rantanen. Like, this dude has performed in the playoffs in an Avs sweater. And it's not, try to take away the circumstance of why he's in Dallas and why that's significant. If Mikko Rantanen was just a Hurricanes player and moved to the Stars, as difficult of logic as that is to follow, he would be one of the guys that you circle and say, this is a guy that could be the X factor in the series, could wreck the series, could be one of the most important players on the ice. It was never an intention of Chris McFarland to have to see Mikko Rantanen in the playoffs. He shipped him off clear across the country and said, if we happen to see him in the Stanley Cup final, then so be it. Didn't want to see him a minute before that. And now you're getting him tomorrow. And you think of what Mikko Rantanen means to this Dallas Stars team. Obviously, they're looking to him to be a big-time playoff performer, to get them, the way they're looking at it, is to get them over the hump that they've hit the last couple of years, right? Haven't been able to get out of the West. They add Mikko Rantanen with the hopes that he can push them over the top. Well, now you have Jason Robertson's injury. And Jason Robertson not looking like he's going to play tomorrow. Pete DeBoer says he's week to week. Game 1's tomorrow. So now there's even more on the shoulders of Mikko Rantanen without 35 goals in the lineup, courtesy of Jason Robertson. So not only is there the Avs going up against their former teammate angle, but Mikko Rantanen has suddenly become arguably the most important player on the Dallas Stars. And Mikko Rantanen talked about this today with the Dallas media. And I had already written it down, and then I saw some of his quotes. It's not going to be the same as the last time he came back to Colorado. It is much more businesslike. There won't be a tribute video. There won't be him getting emotional. It'll be a little bit weird still, I'm sure. But it is, and he said it today, it's going to be much easier going back there the second time. Much easier. So the idea that Mikko Rantanen is going to be overcome with emotions every time he steps into Ball Arena for now until the end of time, just not the case. He's more comfortable with this. So I think Mikko Rantanen, certainly one of the biggest storylines. How about Mackenzie Blackwood on the biggest stage of his life? Here's some playoff numbers for you. Jake Ottinger, the Dallas Stars goalie, 47 career playoff games. Goals allowed average 2.46, a .915 save percentage. Mackenzie Blackwood, 0 games, 0 goals allowed, 0 save percentage. In addition to the fact that it wasn't that long ago that Jake Ottinger put together maybe the best series we have ever seen from a goalie. 61 of 64 shots stopped against Calgary back in 2022. Like, Jake Ottinger has that label. He is a big game goalie. Mackenzie Blackwood does not have that same moniker because he's never played in a big game. And I'm sorry, until he does, until we see it, we don't know fully how he's going to respond. He talked about it this week and said that he's not the type of guy to get, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he doesn't get too high or too low. He's a pretty chill guy. And I think that's a fair self-assessment. He's struck me this whole time as a pretty chill guy. I don't think that Mackenzie Blackwood is going to fall flat on his face. I think he's talented enough. I think the team in front of him is good enough for Mackenzie Blackwood to be very good in this series. But I can only say I think, because I have no past history to go on. And tomorrow's going to be huge. And really not for Mackenzie Blackwood. Like, you don't want to tell Mackenzie Blackwood, this is the game that you got to save us. But there will be a game at some point where where Mackenzie Blackwood is going to have to bail out the Avs. He's going to have to put on his Jake Ottinger costume. There may be one of those games. It might be this series. Maybe game 5 of a series that's tied at 2. Maybe a game 7. You don't want to ask Mackenzie Blackwood tomorrow to bail you out in his first playoff game ever. Tomorrow's got to be about the guys in front of him protecting him in a way, easing him into playoff hockey. And I think once he gets comfortable, if the Dallas Stars don't jump on him, I think it has a chance to be a very good series for Mackenzie Blackwood. But if tomorrow goes poorly, the series might go poorly. And Dallas, the desperation level, that was one of the things from Pete DeBoer after the loss last night. There's seven, the other night, I should say, there's 7th in a row, talking about desperation level. They'll be as desperate as any team has ever been in game 1. They have lost 7 straight games. They'll be coming at the Colorado Avalanche with everything they got tomorrow. And it may not be good enough, but the Avs got to do their part in front of Mackenzie Blackwood. They can't have him under constant duress. But Mackenzie Blackwood and easy. And I also think as the playoffs go on, not just the series goes on, the playoffs go on, I think he's going to get more comfortable on this stage. But tomorrow, there's, whether he's a chill guy or not, there's, going to be some nerves. And then storyline number 3, I guess I have to ask the question, are the Stars really the team that I am making them out to be? And that's not to diminish. They're deep, they're talented, they're battle tested, but it's just no Miro Heiskanen. Now, at least for tomorrow, no Jason Robertson. Stay tuned. Because if he's week to week, they play again on Monday. And if the Avs go up 1-0, all of a sudden the Stars are in a real bind. But what I'm asking is, without Miro Heiskanen, is this still a team that's incredibly difficult to play against? Are they still a team that can take away the time and space that the Avs flourish in? I think they're missing some of their personnel that makes them that way. And I don't want to put too much into the last 7 games, but I can't unsee it. I can't help but wonder if the Stars, the team that I picked at the beginning of the season to win the Stanley Cup, that then added Mikko Rantanen, is now not that team anymore. Or at least a lesser version of that team. In this series, it's going to be so close, razor thin, the margins will be of this series, that even if the Stars are a little bit less than what they have been for most of the season, that could be enough. I mean, that's certainly, Chris McFarland's banking on that with how different the Avs are. He's saying we're just enough different in the right ways to make a difference in a series like Dallas, a team that ended our season last year. This is still going to be an incredibly difficult series for the Colorado Avalanche to win, but I don't know that without Heiskanen and maybe without Robertson for some period of time, and given how down bad this team has been lately, I don't know if it's the Stars team I have in my head that I'm going to see out on the ice. And I think tomorrow's going to go a long way to showing me whether it is or whether it isn't. I think the Avs win this series. I do. I think they win, and I think they win it in 6. I think Blackwood will be good enough for the Avs to win. I have some questions about the injuries for the Dallas Stars. I just do, and it's a lot similar to why I'm going against the Nuggets. I mean, we can wonder about all the new with the Colorado Avalanche. But they're healthy. Forget Gabriel Landeskog. He's an added bonus. He is not a necessity for this team. They got back Ryan Lindgren and Josh Manson today. They're good to go. The Avs are healthy. And they could get to another level of healthy if they bring back Gabriel Landeskog. Health matters. I mean, we hate to talk about it. We hate to make it a big thing, but after 82 games and then having to go through 16, 20, 25, 28 games, it so often is the healthier team. And that's why Jared Bednar got the end of the season so right, and it appears that Pete DeBoer did not. I think that the Avs win this series. Take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. I got Clippers in 6, Avs in 6. Agree, disagree. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Hello there. Welcome. Drive Time Sports on a Friday. Hopefully you're maneuvering around out there on the roadways okay. That stupid rodent told me that we were supposed to have spring by now. One more weekend of this, right? Like, we've lived here long enough, you and I. This is probably it. Last one, and then it's onward and upward with the weather that we love living in Colorado for, not this garbage. But we'll make the most of it, won't we? Make the best of it, I should say, not make the most of it. Appreciate you tuning in, joining in, however you're doing it, online, on air, Extra Sports 1300 app, or watching this show on our social media platforms. 719-247-1313 is the number if you'd like to give your thoughts, perhaps, on the three stories that are driving the show. All right, let's start, of course, with Gabe Watch. Here's Jared Bednar.
He's close. He's getting close. Obviously, every day I feel like he's getting a little quicker and a little bit more confident, a little more sure of himself. So, but he'll be an option for us in this series.
That is perhaps the final word from Jared Bednar before the Avs take the ice tomorrow night against the Dallas Stars for Game 1 of their series. Gabriel Landeskog, an option. I have read into this situation more than I would have cared to for more days than I would have cared to, not because I'm not eagerly awaiting Gabriel Landeskog's return like the rest of you, but it just at the end of the day becomes quite the futile effort. If he was playing tomorrow, would he say it? That's when I heard that. That's what I was thinking in my head. If he was playing Game 1, wouldn't he just say it? I mean, how much prep are the Stars putting in between now and or about in the next 24 hours? Right? If he's an option for us this series, that tells me that some of the rumors that are out there of a Wednesday return at Ball Arena more likely than tomorrow night. But it looked good again by everyone that was there watching him this morning at Morning Skate before they departed to Dallas. Looked great again. I don't know if it's and Jared Bednar will talk about it once Gabriel Landeskog does return. But what was the last little bit? I'm curious two things. One, what was the activity that Gabriel Landeskog did that got him past? And I would have to think about right before he had those press conferences the last couple of years about that he wasn't quite ready, thinking about the last thing that he did on the ice. But I'm curious what the thing was that he did. The drill, the activity that he did that made the Avalanche go, oh, this is the tipping point. Now he's truly on the path to the returning where maybe in previous years he wasn't. I'm curious about that. And then I'm curious, if not tomorrow, why Game 3? Is it conditioning? Is it, wanting the team to kind of get into the series before you introduce this variable? I would probably lean the latter. But I would say, listening to Jared Bednar, Gabriel Landeskog will be on the ice for the Colorado Avalanche in this series. He's an option which means they're going to use him. But when is now the question. And it's been when for a while, but it's no longer if. So that's the latest with Gabriel Landeskog. My prediction for Avs Stars, if you missed it earlier, Avs in 6. Avs in 6. I have questions. Mackenzie Blackwood on this stage, all the new with this team. But I think they are built the right way. And unlike Dallas, they are healthy. And as much as we try to take health out of it because we feel like it's an excuse or it's an easy thing to scapegoat, after an 82-game season, yeah, it's a war of attrition. The healthier teams tend to do better. And the Avs in a series that is so razor thin, the difference between these two teams is so minimal. Missing Miro Heiskanen for the series, missing Jason Robertson for a couple of games. He's out tomorrow, week to week, says Pete DeBoer. I think that could make the difference. And I don't think for the Avs' own benefit, I don't think they want any part of Game 7 Jake Ottinger in Dallas. So, Avs in 6. As for the other series, that starts tomorrow. Nuggets and Clippers, 1:30 right here on Extra Sports 1300. I think the three biggest storylines for this series are Russell Westbrook, David Adelman, and yes, health. How healthy are the Nuggets? Can Kawhi stay healthy? David Adelman is going to have to start. I know he's been coaching, but like really start coaching. He's going to have to make there are going to be decisions that he makes in this series that we'll be talking about the day after. Good or bad. He's going to have to decide when to pull Nikola Jokic. He's going to have to decide how to manage Jamal Murray. Who's going to be that eighth man in the rotation? He said today, everybody's got to be ready. I think he means it. I think Watson and Westbrook will be regularly out there. I think we could see some Julian Strawther. I think we'll see a fair amount of Jalen Pickett. And I think we could see DeAndre Jordan. I think it's going to very much depend on score and situation. And also the health of this team. I think that part of David Adelman's comments today are a little bit of an acknowledgement that this team's a little banged up. And and I expect Jamal Murray to look as good as he's going to look the entire series tomorrow, which is why I think tomorrow is going to be a great day for you if you're a Colorado sports fan, because I think both the Nuggets and the Avs are winning tomorrow. But my worry, if I'm a Nuggets fan, is that Jamal Murray is going to get worse as the series goes on. And I don't know that the Nuggets can get past this LA team with the Jamal Murray that showed up against the Lakers last year. That was a guy that was clearly hurt, clearly battling through it. And he had just enough Jamal Murray heroics in him to get the Nuggets past the Lakers. This Clippers team's better than that Laker team. And they have things that the Nuggets do not handle well. It is I'll put it this way. It's a worse matchup for the Nuggets than the Lakers were 1 year ago. They're going to need Jamal Murray to be full-blown playoff Jamal Murray. But if he's not, all of a sudden, Russell Westbrook, your role is more significant. And maybe they have to go a bit deeper into the bench. It is possible because that number one storyline, health, cuts both ways. Right now, I look at the Clippers as the healthier team, but they are relying on the health of a guy who has not finished a playoff series in a Clippers uniform since the bubble. We could go along in this series with the Clippers in control, and then Kawhi Leonard's knee gives out, and then that's a wrap. Clippers are done. Just like the Nuggets without playoff Jamal Murray, they're toast. If Kawhi Leonard gets hurt, this Clippers team is done for. They are dead on the spot. Whether it's this round, the next round, if Kawhi Leonard goes down, this Clippers team has no shot to beat any team that they would face in the playoffs. So it could go either way. But right now, I think that the Clippers are the healthier team. And I think there's a chance that the Nuggets could get less healthy as the series goes on. I'll take the Avs in 6. I think I need to take the Clippers in 6. And story number 3, here's Sean Payton.
If you have a real clear vision for how you want to use them, I think it's just the team's feeling for how good that player is and what type of career we think we can have. And then sometimes it's just, the way the draft unfolds. Sometimes you don't take one. It's not because you don't want to take one. It's just that maybe another position, landed in your lap. So a lot of it is your team and then the player specifically.
That is Sean Payton talking about his thoughts on a running back and why you would draft one in the first round. The theme of yesterday's press conference, pre-draft press conference with George Payton and Sean Payton, was we are cool with where we're at. The type of decision-making that has gotten us here, where we're back in the playoffs, where we have an upward trajectory, we're not going to abandon that mentality in team building. And George Payton has been very good at drafting. I think the idea in the Broncos' head is let's let George cook. Let him do his thing. Let's not disrupt it. However, Sean Payton, I think, has the ultimate say here. And I think it's, if there is a running back that he has that specific vision for, he will tell George Payton, I know what the plan was. This guy's available to us. We need to move up. And I'll keep saying it. And maybe it's a moot point because there's no way Ashton Genty is even going to be remotely close to the Broncos at number 20. I don't think that player with a specific vision in Sean Payton's mind is Ashton Genty. I don't. I think it's one of these more, jack of all trades, multifaceted, versatile running backs that he's thinking about. An Amarion Hampton, a Travion Henderson. I think those are the type of backs that Sean Payton may get the urge to ask George Payton to move up. If, say, Genty goes super early, like, say, to Vegas, and then the Bears take Hampton, and now all of a sudden the Cowboys are coming up, and they need a running back, I could see Sean Payton like, oh, we got to move up because after Henderson, they're still good running backs, but they're not as versatile as Henderson and Hampton. I think that's the type of player, and I think you could even look at still like a Colston Loveland. right? How about running some 2 tight end sets with jokers on either side, Evan Ingram and Colston Loveland? If it's somebody that Sean Payton thinks he can move around the formation, make defensive coordinators do some extra homework and game plan a little bit more, create those matchup problems, I think that's the type of player that Sean Payton will be a little bit more aggressive about, or the Broncos, by extension, will be a little bit more aggressive about. I still think that they can get one of those guys at 20, and I even still kind of think that they could get one of them in the second round. Henderson more. I think Hampton's going to go on day one. And I'd still say exploit the depth in the draft at running back. I don't necessarily, if I'm in Sean Payton's shoes, I don't necessarily need to have this uber versatile running back. If I can get the Egmeka Ibuka or get one of these defensive linemen to give me depth there and to allow Vance Joseph to rotate more guys. Like, I think there are other things you could get at 20 and then get a running back that can give you maybe the best back that you have on the roster. I think that's possible. So that's the way I would do it. I'm just trying to put my mind into Sean Payton's to think what he would deviate for, what he would get aggressive for. It would be somebody that he thinks he can create matchup problems by moving them around the formation and doing different things with them. A Joker-like player, if you will. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. Drive Time Sports continues next on Extra Sports 1300. Drive Time Sports on this snowy Friday. Doesn't look like it's letting up, but what do I know? I'm sitting in a studio looking through blinds. I have no concept of anything. I'll leave it to our traffic and weather reports to give you a more accurate picture of what's going on out there. As far as tomorrow goes, look, the one thing that I feel like I may be proven wrong about as far as my feelings on game one for both of these teams, Gabriel Landeskog might play tomorrow. He might. I get the sense that he's not going to. But I could be wrong about that. But I think both the Avs and the Nuggets are going to win tomorrow. I do. And obviously for the Avalanche, that's a huge win for him to get, because now all of a sudden, if Jason Robertson doesn't play tomorrow, and I'm wiping Miro Heiskanen off the board right now until I see him back with the Dallas Stars. I'm expecting him to not play at all. Robertson, I expect back at some point. Now, do you have to rush him back? Because Dallas can't afford to go down 2-0. For the Nuggets, a game one win, unfortunately, won't say a whole heck of a lot. Now, how they win could. Now, I think Jamal Murray will look the best tomorrow that he'll look at all during the series. So I think that certainly helps. I think some of what we've seen from the Denver Nuggets lately will carry over the state of mind that they're in. But here's my question about the Nuggets. Okay, what happens when adversity strikes? Right? How do they respond if they lose game one? And we'll reconvene on Monday if that situation plays out and talk more about it. But that's what I'm curious about, because all is well and good right now. Right? They made the change. It was difficult, but the players responded in the right way. David Adelman seem to have a great affinity towards him. I like the way David Adelman's handling all of this, but there's a chance that they were going to win these 3 games to close out the season anyway. Right? Now it gets real. And we saw what happened early in the series last year against Minnesota. The Nuggets got metaphorically punched in the mouth, and they did not deal well with it. Now, I think this is a different year, and I do think that this team is more in the mode that they were 2 years ago. Everybody's downing us. Our backs, we're going to prove people wrong, and I think that's a much better place for the Denver Nuggets to be in than having the weight of expectation. But this is a Clippers team that can frustrate them. And how they respond to that, I think, is going to say a lot about how the rest of the series will go. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Nuggets, get a significant win in terms of point margin over LA. Like at some point, with how hot the LA Clippers have been, they're gonna throw out a dud. And if they win tomorrow, then I guarantee you it'll be game 2. But I wouldn't be shocked if it was tomorrow. But let's face it, the Nuggets are supposed to win game 1. The Avs, if they were to, it would be, I think, a surprise to a lot of people. It really wouldn't be a surprise to me, honestly. I think with everything going on around the Dallas Stars, I think that the Avs really should win tomorrow. I really do. No Heiskanen, no Robertson. This team belly flopped into the pool going into the playoffs. I think the Avs are rested. They're healthy. I think that, honestly, the expectation for both teams is that they should win game one. But if they lose, I think I'm more interested, and maybe worried is actually the right word, about the Nuggets than I am the Avs. Even though if you're going to rip home ice away from somebody, game one is the right game to do it. You know, game one and then game three, you don't necessarily take back home field or home court or home ice. But for the underdogs, and we'll call the Avs the underdogs in this series, given that they are the lower seed, game one, game three. If you're going to pull off a quote-unquote upset, those are the games you got to get, or those are the most likely games you're going to win. And who knows? They may throw Gabriel Landeskog on top of all this other stuff that's pointing in the direction of the Avs taking game one tomorrow. But my overall feel, and obviously my prediction of the Avs making it out of the first round and the Nuggets not, tells you everything you need to know. My level of confidence is much higher in the Colorado Avalanche. And I said earlier this week, and I'll stand by it until some significant information comes across to me that I need to change my mind. I think the winner of this series, which could still be the Stars, but I think it'll be the Avs, will go to the Stanley Cup final. And some of the other pieces of information that could come in that could make me stray away from that is, among other things, if Connor Hellebuck is phenomenal against St. Louis, I don't think he has to be for Winnipeg to win in the first round. But if Connor Hellebuck is every bit the guy he was during the most of the regular season and going to win the Vezina Trophy and maybe is an MVP candidate, I think that changes things. I have my doubts that he will be that guy throughout the playoffs. If you look at Draisaitl and McDavid, especially for McDavid, you would consider it for him like the worst year of his life. For most people, it would be a career year, but that's the standard that we hold Connor McDavid to. If Draisaitl and McDavid just tear apart the LA Kings, who I actually think are quite dangerous in the West. I do think that the Kings have a chance to surprise some people. But if the duo of McDavid and Draisaitl just lay waste to them, then Oilers change their perception. And that's the thing about these playoffs. Perceptions of these teams can change because you're stepping onto a much bigger stage. Switches can be flipped, although Nikola Jokic doesn't believe in switches being flipped. I think a lot can change after a first round. Just need to get it going. My goodness, do we need Avs and Nuggets games in the worst way? This has been like the longest week ever. 1:30 tomorrow, Nuggets and Clippers game one. 6:30 tomorrow night, Avs Stars game one. Both games can be heard on 1300 AM. If you are listening on the app or the stream, you will hear Switchback Soccer against El Paso Locomotive tomorrow night at 6. And if you're looking for a terrestrial radio home for the Avs or for the Switchbacks tomorrow night, it will be on down the dial on AM 740 KVOR. are. Take a break, come back, wrap up the week after this. Read something from Troy Rank in the Denver Post earlier. The headline was attention grabbing to the folks there at the Denver Post credit that this may be the last playoff for Aaron Gordon in a Nuggets uniform. And it sticks out to you because Aaron Gordon has rarely this season been singled out as a problem or as the guy that is being talked about in trade ideas. It's always Murray and Porter. But I do think that Troy Rank makes a good point that that's actually the reason why, if the Nuggets are going to make at least one significant change this offseason, it could be surrounding Aaron Gordon. Not because they look at Aaron Gordon and say we need to be better at that position or in that role. It's that he's the guy with value. And he talks about his contract being a little bit easier to move than Jamal Murray's or Michael Porter's. And Michael Porter's is contract being a little bit tougher to move also has to do with the player that Michael Porter is. A lot of people would not say that what Michael Porter brings to the table is worth a max deal, which is the whole, you know, this story already. We've discussed it. While I acknowledge the reality of what Troy Rank is saying, I sure hope that the next GM to take over the Denver Nuggets can find a way around it. Because he is walking into this series as the most important, as he's been pretty much every single series that he's played in a Nuggets uniform, as the most important player on the defensive end of the floor for the Denver Nuggets. And we may see the Nuggets ultimately fall in this series, but Aaron Gordon do a terrific job on Kawhi Leonard. And then it's going to even make it more difficult to move him. And that's what's going to be so tricky about the next GM coming in after what I think will be a first-round playoff exit. Just simply tinkering is not going to be enough. Because let's look at the potential scenarios in which the Denver Nuggets lose. Let's start with, they don't have a third reliable scorer outside of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Let's say Michael Porter is the person getting the most criticism. Well, what are you going to do? How are you going to be able to move him? It will be, you got to move Michael Porter, right? If Jamal Murray isn't healthy, then you can make the case like, we love the guy, but we have to make sure that our second best player is available. I have a hard time believing that if the Nuggets end up losing this series, that we're going to be saying, man, Aaron Gordon didn't pull his weight. I don't see it. I could see, Jamal Murray, we got to get somebody in there that's healthier. Or Michael Porter, the normal conversation around Michael Porter, or Christian Brown wasn't really able to take a step up and be that next level guy the Nuggets need him to be. And I can sure see, the Russell Westbrook experiment didn't work out on the biggest stage. Like, I could see a variety of reasons that we could potentially point to at the end of this series. I have a hard time believing it's that, Aaron Gordon didn't do his job. The only person that I think would be more ridiculous that if we were saying that would be Nikola Jokic. But if the Nuggets lose in the first round, They got to do something significant. There's no way that Josh Kroenke, and I think he knows this, he can't sit up. I think what he's legitimately hoping is removing the burden of the Malone versus Booth dynamic, that it really unlocks this team that I think he likes very much. I think he likes the roster. I think he bought into what Calvin Booth was selling. And I certainly think he believes in the core 4 guys on this basketball team. And I think he is quite optimistic that this is just the thing that they need. But if they bow out in round 1, going against Oklahoma City and losing, I think you could talk yourself into no big changes need to be made. We're going to get a GM and a head coach that are on the same page. We're going to get a good head coach, and that will be enough moving forward. And then we got to hope that that second apron gets at the Oklahoma City Thunder. But if they lose now, first round exit, that should be enough to even get people who, like maybe Josh Kroenke, who very much believe in the roster as currently constructed, even get somebody like that to go, okay, maybe we need to make a big move. And I hope it doesn't come at the expense of Aaron Gordon. But I think Troy Rank is right when he said you got to look at who has value more than what's the problem. Because if the problem in this series is Jamal Murray's not healthy, how many other teams are going, well, we'll take that. We'll take a guy that we don't know on a year-to-year basis whether he's going to be healthy for the most important games. We'll go ahead and take that. Take anything you want. Pick anything you want from our team. If Michael Porter, again, like he has the last couple of postseasons, regresses as it goes along, his numbers, his impact goes down as the playoffs go on, then who's going to be the team looking at Michael Porter with that contract and saying that's the guy that we're going to build around? So you have to fix a problem that is maybe caused by another player, you have to take somebody that you don't want to move, but you got to move him because he can bring back the value you need. But it's like you're making yourself worse to make yourself better. And that's a tough swing. But that's off-season conversation because now we're right up against it. Tomorrow afternoon, Game 1, Nuggets and Clippers at 1:30, followed by the Avs and Stars Game 1 at 6:30. You'll be able to hear both here on 1300 AM on Extra Sports 1300 app or extrasports1300.com. You will be able to hear the Switchbacks tomorrow night take on El Paso. If you're looking for a radio home on your dial, it will be 7:40 a.m. There's going to be some juggling of the schedule, and where you normally listen to teams on this station, you may have to go elsewhere, but I'll try my best to keep you updated and informed on all of that. It's going to be a great sports weekend with the playoffs starting up. It's not just Avs Nuggets. I mean, it's the playoffs in both the NBA and the NHL in their entirety getting going. It's a be great weekend. Switchbacks finally back home at Widener Field. Could use it. So a lot going on this weekend. Hope you enjoy it. Of course, there is a holiday on Sunday, and I hope very much that however you are spending your Sunday, that you are doing it in an enjoyable fashion with the people that you want to spend the holiday with. So a good one. We'll be back on Monday, and it will be Game 1 reaction, Game 2 previews. Remember, they both play again on Monday. And then, of course, we get going with the NFL draft. Our Drive Time Sports mock draft will begin on Monday. And again, if you're listening here at the tail end of the show, if you would like to represent your favorite team, just text in at 719-247-1313. Let me know. There are a few spots still open, few teams that have yet to be represented, and we'll start that on Monday. Countdown to the NFL draft. For me, for my money, best time of the year is right now. Enjoy the weekend. Talk to you tomorrow for Switchbacks or Monday for this show here on Extra Sports 1300.